that does, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I feel like since the district guys are here, we should pull it off consent and ask a bunch of questions, you know? I mean, make it worth their time, you know? I could come up with lots of questions, you know?
Tell me you want to see how the
I mean,
basketball arenas look.
I went over those plans, you know, last night, just, you know, just reading the specs, you know? No?
Modest size one thing that would assign.
I saw also Troy's like, I got to work on a parliamentary procedure thing for them. So I was like, oh, I hope they don't get one of those questions. But yeah, that's just good to know because different cities seem to have different processes for that. So.
No, because you never know when the rest of us might get a little moment of grace. But a knowing smile, perhaps.
Who votes to adjourn?
Heidi's here. Now we can start.
To adjourn?
Ward 2 is here, represented.
All right. We will call the meeting to order. Will the clerk please note those in attendance?
All will be noted.
Will you please stand? Before we say the Pledge of Allegiance, I just want to take a minute to recognize the sacrifice of the two fallen officers and fallen firefighter for the city of Burnsville. On behalf of the city of White Bear Lake, our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of those fallen officers and the firefighter. And our thoughts and prayers go out to the city of Burnsville. And at this time, if you bow your heads and join me in a moment of silence in honor of their memory. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. On to item 2A, the minutes of the regular city council meeting from February 13th, 2024. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
A motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Item 2B, minutes of the city council work session from February 13. I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Move to approve.
I have a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The minutes are approved. Item 2C, minutes of the city council work session on February 20. I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. The minutes are approved. Item 3, adoption of the agenda. Does anybody have any corrections or amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move to approve.
I have a motion is second. All those in favor of approving and adopting the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. Item 4, consent agenda. Before I'd entertain a motion to approve that, I just want to make one note to the item 4E, resolution approving the salary adjustment for the city manager. If you recall, at our closed session, we spoke in terms of a percentage increase for the city manager. There's a slight tweak to that for administrative purposes. Instead of a percentage increase, we'll just be moving her to, as reflected in the resolution, step 3, grade AA, which is about a $278 difference per annum. So it's small, but I did want to draw everyone's attention to that. And if there are no issues with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is adopted. All right, item 5, visitors and presentations, the Bruce Vento Trail Phase 1 update. Mr. Copy, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight we have Scott Yonke. He is the Director of Planning and Development for Ramsey County Parks. He'll be with us presenting tonight on the Bruce Vento Trail Phase 1 project to give council an update on it. Just as a reminder, over the years since 2018, council's highly supported this project, offering 5 different letters of support over the period of time for solicitation of funding. So Scott's going to come up here, present, give you an update on where we're at with funding and moving forward with the project. So Scott, if you want to come up. I get the presentation.
Yep, it's in there. Just forward.
Advance. Not advance. There we go. We got it.
Mayor, council members, city staff, my name is Scott Yonke. I'm a landscape architect, and I'm the Planning and Development Director at Ramsey County Parks. And I'd like to just say thank you for allowing me to be here tonight to provide an overview for the Phase 1 section for Bruce Vento Regional Trail. Next slide. All right, I'd like to start off with some project benefits for this project. So it completes about 1/2 of a 6-mile gap of a regional trail corridor and national trail system. It eliminates several barriers and provides a trail and pedestrian facilities in an area that does not currently have facilities today. Provides vital connections to other regional parks and trails, including local parks as well. Reduction of crashes and conflicts between ped bikes and vehicles, increase access to schools, places of work, shopping, and local regional park and trail facilities. And then lastly, it connects various populations across the region, including youth, elderly, family, and residents with disabilities. Next slide. I'd like to just touch on the project funding and project timeline for a second here. So in total, we've estimated about $10 million for this project. And that is comprised of about $5 million in state bond funding, $4 million in federal funding, and $1 million in Ramsey County funding. The timeline for moving forward with this project. So right now we're looking at completion of final construction plans this summer. We're looking at a construction solicitation late this summer, early fall. And then our anticipated construction start this year is October or November. And then it's about a year-long project. So our anticipated construction end will likely be November or December 2025. Next slide. All right. What I'd like to do here is to just provide a little background and context for the Bruce Vento Regional Trail. So the regional trail was established in 1993 along the Burlington Railway corridor. We completed a long-range plan amendment recently. So in total, the whole corridor length is 13.3 miles, and that's from downtown St. Paul up to County Road J. And then currently right now, only 7 miles of trail is constructed from St. Paul to Berkeley Road. Throughout the whole corridor, the regional trail extends through or is adjacent to 6 municipalities. There are significant connections as part of this trail project. So it is part of the Regional Bike Transportation Network and National Bike Route USBR 41. It connects to the Gateway State Trail. Now that is south of this project, but it provides residents from White Bear Lake to the Gateway State Trail, regional parks and trails, as well as several local parks and trails. And then I'd also like to mention, we're grateful at the county that the city has supported this project in the past for funding supports for regional solicitation applications, as well as state bond request. And then in addition, supporting for the long-range plan amendment. Next slide. All right. What I'd like to do here is to just kind of dive a little deeper into the phase 1 section so you have a little better overview of what we're looking at doing. So in total, the phase 1 section is 2.7 miles in length. So you can see on the graphic in the upper right-hand corner, the trail starts at Berkeley Road. It heads north into the city and along Goose Lake, and then it terminates at the intersection of Hoffman Road, Highway 61. Everything that we have done today has been a continuous momentum since we started a lot of our planning activities back in 2014. We completed a preliminary design study, 2014 to 2016. We've been working on preliminary and final plan development. That was from 2018 to 2021. We also completed the long-range plan amendment, and then now we're currently finalizing construction plans and specifications. As part of this project, we're looking at 2 proposed trailheads. One trailhead is located on, just north of County Road E, and that's on city-owned park property. So that's the part of the triangle parking lot section just north of County Road E. And then the second proposed trailhead is along Hoffman Road in White Bear Lake. And then some of the amenities that you'll see along the trail will be natural landscaping and view sheds, buffers and screening to residential and commercial properties, enhanced wayfinding, and then bench, trash, and recycling amenities along the corridor. Next slide. This slide is just to provide a recap of some of the engagement that we have completed to date for the phase 1 section. As we spoke earlier, we had 2 public meetings for the preliminary design study. And then we had 3 public meetings, and this was from 2018 to 2020, and that included phase 1 design, corridor realignment, and a feasibility study. And then in addition, the long-range plan amendment, we had additional engagement on that one, as well as a 30-day public feedback period, online survey for public to provide feedback as well. The public engagement really ended for the phase 1 section when we completed the long-range plan amendment. And then the engagement for the phase 1 section was from the period of 2014 to 2020, and that really focused on how we could achieve the design, receive feedback from residents in White Bear Lake for sections of that trail. And then as far as since 2021, so we were at about 90% final construction plans in 2021. The project was kind of sat for a little bit while we were securing construction funding. And now that we have received construction funding, we're finalizing our construction plans and specifications. Next slide. There we go. Now, what I'd like to do in these next 3 slides is just walk through the trail corridor. I'll be pointing out some of the graphics that you see on your slides. So we'll just start on that. So as you can see on the slide right now, you'll have a long linear aerial graphic. So this is a section between Berkeley Road and past County Road E, kind of in between County Road E and the Highway 61 bridge. That's the segment this covers. So in that segment, we're looking at a at-grade crossing at Berkeley Road, a 12-foot wide off-road trail, proposed future local trail connections between the Bruce Vento Trail and the Willow Marsh Reserve, and that will really provide some additional recreation amenities and opportunities for White Bear Lake in the future. Trail pass under County Road E, access to bike lanes on County Road E, and then some of the amenities, and you'll see this similar on some of the other slides, but the amenities are natural landscapes and view sheds, particularly in this section with the Willow Marsh area, buffers and screens from residential and commercial properties, enhanced wayfinding throughout the corridor, as well as bench, trash, and recycling amenities along the corridor as well. What I'd like to do is I'd like to call out some of the additional graphics that we have. So you can see on the long aerial graphic, there's items called out A, B, and C. Those relate to the graphic sections below. So that's just to provide, to see what it will look like once the trail is built. So section A is really in the Willow Marsh area. So you can see how the trail will look in that section. Section B, this is where we are, due to the existing topography and terrain in this section, as well as the adjoining properties, we are benching a trail on the slope, and you can see that's set down on the slope, and that's really to allow or not block view sheds from the residents, so it helps with some of those mitigation measures for screening as well. And then on the section C, that's kind of a graphic representation of the trail going down under the County Road E bridge. So it'll go down under that, and then it'll come back up and connect into Hoffman Road where the proposed trailhead site is. And then we have a very conceptual graphic of the proposed trailhead site on City Park property. And for there, it's really going to look very similar to that, where it's a very simple trail connection or a trailhead, and it's really meant to provide that increased access for White Bear Lake residents. And in the trailhead, we're looking at a kiosk sign, more wayfinding, some site amenities, a bench, trash, recycling, and some landscaping around as well. So that is this first section. Next slide. So the second section that I'd like to talk about, it's kind of picking up where the other one left off on Hoffman Road, just before the Highway 61 bridge. And then this section goes over to Goose Lake, just to give you some context on that. Very similar to the section above, where 12-foot wide off-road trail, as well as access to residential commercial properties, the trail underpass on Highway 61. We are proposing an at-grade trail crossing at Shinman Road, and then very similar site amenities along this section as well. And then what I do want to call out on Hoffman Road, we're looking at no parking on Hoffman Road on one side, and that's really to allow trail development for there. And then again, we have a graphic section, so item number D. So this is just before you get to the Highway 61 bridge. So you can see that's what the trail section is going to look like along Hoffman Road. So we're really taking an approach to providing a buffer to the road, as well as trying to work with a lot of the existing vegetation along that corridor as well. Next slide. And then the last section that I'd like to cover, so this is really from the Goose Lake section to the northern terminus, and that's at the intersection of Hoffman Road, Highway 61. Again, very similar components of what I had mentioned earlier. Some other additional items that I'd like to call out here. So for the Goose Lake section, we're looking at no parking on both sides of Hoffman Road, as well as we're also looking at some additional native landscape restoration and erosion control enhancements to Goose Lake. And then the graphic slide that you see here, item number E, that's a graphic representation of where the trail is located. So you'll see Hoffman Road is to the right, or excuse me, Goose Lake is to the right, Hoffman Road, and then the trail is located in between Hoffman Road and the railway corridor. Next slide. And then lastly, I'd just like to follow up on next steps. So right now, we're working on going through the MnDOT state aid process, so that's an ongoing process right now. We're working on completing municipal and regulatory permitting, land agreements and easements, what would be required to build components of this trail. And then additionally, finalize construction plans and specifications. So at this point, my presentation is ended, and I would like to answer questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Council, any questions? Councilmember West.
Mayor. I really appreciate working on this and getting it closer to being done. We care about trees here, so I want to ask about trees. I see the natural landscape and buffer screening that you have listed here. Do you know, are you thinking about how many trees are being removed and how many will be put up as part of the natural landscape buffer, or kind of what does that look like for you?
Absolutely. Great question. So one, we are very sensitive in all of our projects, and this, we are a natural-based resource park system, so that's a component that we're sensitive about. There will be some tree removal as part of the project, but we're going to be very selective in some of those areas where there is tree removal. And then we're also looking throughout the corridor for planting additional trees along the trail to, one, provide that additional buffer, but also to provide that additional canopy for the trail itself, just working with reducing some of the heat and sun on the trail for trail users. As far as some of the vegetation that we would be using for screening, that varies in regards to the types, but we would look for vegetation that would provide at least a 70 or an 80% screening level at that point, and that's can be achieved with certain types of vegetation on there. But we're looking at that throughout the corridor because we really do, we want to be sensitive with our neighbors along the corridor, the adjacent properties along the corridor as well in certain areas. So that is a very sensitive component we're looking at.
Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You had a slide on public input and public feedback. Can you characterize it? I mean, is it mostly positive? We get some good participation. What are people saying? I haven't heard anything really negative on phase one. I'm not getting emails on it. So
yeah. So that's another great question. Thank you for asking that one. So as far as the feedback that we received on the phase one section has always been fairly positive on that one. That's a fairly straightforward section on there. We held several public meetings to connect with residents at several stages of the project, so it wasn't just a couple times on that one. And then additionally, we also looked at other opportunities for receiving feedback as well through online platforms, online surveys to really reach a broader audience on that one. But it was positive for the phase one section, so I'm happy to see that, and we're happy to provide this amenity for the city of White Bear Lake and residents.
So then the natural follow-up then to that is, and just future planning, because Phase 2 is freaking people out a little bit on Bald Eagle Avenue especially. So what's the schedule? Let's just talk, like, when would we think we'll kind of get to those things?
So that's another great question. Phase 2, we are looking at starting that project up again this year. And really what that is going to be is we are following recommendations from the preliminary design study that was completed. So we're following those. We're looking at having a very large engagement component again as part of that, because we really want to hear feedback from residents on that one. And then as part of that, would try work through several steps. As far as that project, look at additional planning components for that project as well. But that one is anticipated to start this year as well.
Okay. One final question, Mr. Mayor, then. Does the Phase 1, did Phase 1 involve negotiations with the railroad? Did you have to work with them, or are we free and clear in terms of Phase 1 getting up here without having to deal with the railroad?
What I can say on that one is the county has been actively engaged with the railway throughout this project. We're still engaged with them. We've worked through several components of the Phase 1 project, and that, as well as integrating some components that they would like to see on our plans, as well as working through several areas as well. So right now, we're working through steps on achieving a permit.
So
with the
there's
railway.
active communication going on?
There is active communication going on currently.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the council? All right. Thank you for the report. Ms.
Thank you, Mayor. I
Crawford?
just want to clarify, when you say Phase 2 starting up this year, you're not talking about construction? Right.
Absolutely not.
I just want to clarify for everyone.
As of right now, construction is only planned for Phase 1. We are so early in the Phase 2 project. It's still at project infancy at this point. We just, the preliminary design study that was completed previously, that was meant to explore some of the routes through the city at that point, but we're going to be picking that back up again and still exploring those steps that came out of the design study. So no, construction is not planned for the Phase 2 at this point.
Just to get a little sense of the timeline, I'm seeing Phase 1 preliminary design study 2014 to 2016. Is that what we're talking about starting up this year, or
No.
we're already past that?
We are past that one. What the questions were is regarding the Phase 2 section, preliminary design study.
I'm kind of compare and contrast the timeline of Phase 1 from, as you said, infancy for Phase 2. What was the timeline between infancy of Phase 1 and then this year we're putting shovels in the ground? Am I correct in reading that that's 2016 was the infancy, and now in 2014 we're putting shovels in the ground?
Yes, we started the Phase 1 in 2014, and now we'll finally be putting shovels in the ground here late 2024.
So do you anticipate a similar timeline for infancy to shovels in the ground for Phase 2? Put another way, we're like 6 to 8 years out from Phase 2 actually being constructed?
I would agree with that, because it is going to take quite a bit of time to get through all the planning and design stages for that project, for the Phase 2 project, as well as securing construction funding, which is going to take several years on top of that. So it's likely a very similar timeline.
That's very helpful. Thank you. All right. Thank you for the report. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, item 6A, we have a requested appeal for denied massage license. Ms. Crawford, are you taking this?
I am. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The city regulates massage businesses and practitioner licenses in Chapter 1127 of the City Code. On January 15th, Christina Vang submitted a massage therapist license application to work at the Carlson Clinic. In the application, Vang stated that she has an active massage license with the City of Brooklyn Center. However, the police department found no such license while processing the application. City code states that it shall be grounds for denial, revocation, non-renewal, suspension, or any other appropriate adverse license sanction if the applicant provides false information on their application materials. Therefore, staff issued the attached denial letter to Vang on February 1st, which is consistent with city code and past applications. Also on February 1st, Vang filed a statement to appeal the decision and is here tonight to address the council. The statement is attached in your packet. Previous appeals brought before the city council have ultimately been upheld, aligning with city code. The city recognizes massage therapy as a reasonable business and has licensed several such businesses and practitioners. However, the nature of the business, the potential for such businesses to be used as a disguise for other activities, and difficulties related to investigating violations occurring at such business compels city staff and the council to carefully scrutinize all massage applications and appeals. In addition, the city is charged with protecting the health, safety, and welfare of White Lake. After hearing from Vang, staff does recommend the city council adopt the attached resolution upholding the massage therapist license application denial. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. This being a public hearing, I will open the public hearing at this time. I do have one name on my list, and it appears to be Ms. Vang. If you have anything to say on that matter, please step up to the podium. State your name and address for the record. Please.
Christina Newvang, address is 1908 Red Oak Lane, Lino Lakes, Minnesota 55038.
Very good.
So I did make the mistake saying that my license was active, which I misunderstood. That I used to work for the city of Brooklyn Center, but my license is still active now, but not in that city. So I make the mistake of putting active on that.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like the council to know before we deliberate? If you want to speak, are you done, Ms. Vang?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Carlson, just for the record, if you could state your name and address, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Justin Carlson. You guys kind of know me, unfortunately. Well, not lately. 2505 Lake Avenue, White Lake. So thank you for taking the time tonight. And Mr. Crawford, thank you for doing your due diligence. I do appreciate that. We don't want any, illegal things going on in our community. The reason I'm here tonight is I've known Ms. Bang for, 15 years, long time. I've known her husband for a long time. She did do massage therapy work for me in Brooklyn Center, my own clinic in Brooklyn Center. And she's been a patient with her kids, as well. So if anyone can speak about how the quality of the person she is, I'm pretty good at knowing who she is. But she did make a mistake in the application. She put on there that she had a massage license in Brooklyn Center. Now, if any of us investigated that, you would know that she hasn't worked there since 2014, and it's $5,000 a year to have a license. So what's the odds of her keeping that license in a city she doesn't work? It just doesn't exist. So she made a simple mistake. It's hard for me to find a qualified massage therapist in Minnesota. There's fewer massage therapists. The local college has been shut down. It's harder and harder to find it. So when we find someone that I trust, that I know, that I like, that's been good with my patients, we thought it was a home run. And it's been difficult in the city. So we asked right away, like, hey, we made a mistake. Can we just resubmit the application with the correct terminology on it? Unfortunately, the city manager and city employees said absolutely not. There's no way we can fix it. And so that's why we're here tonight. It's not because they didn't do their job. I understand there's rules and we have to follow them, but I guess we're asking for an exception because of the background check checked all good. There was no offenses, there's no arrests, there's no fouls. She's in good standing. She has an active license. She went to the school. It would be hard for us to find someone who I think is better qualified to serve our patients. So we're asking for, can we look at the application again? Can we get her a license? Because I got patients that are wanting us to have it. We see a lot of auto injuries, a lot of comp injuries, and just wellness. And it'd be great for us to have someone good, in our clinic. So I just wanted to help clarify the situation, that it was an accident. And sometimes those applications are difficult to fill out, as we all know. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Council, what would we like to do with this? Councilmember Edberg.
I haven't raised my voice yet.
There was body
ready
language
in his
signifying that you had
But
something
Mr.
to say.
Walsh was waving his hands.
Go for it.
Thank you,
say the same
Mr. Mayor.
thing.
Ms. Crawford, I don't remember our ordinance. Is there a provision for a resubmission after a certain point in time? After a denial, is there a provision that allows a subsequent resubmittal after X number? My recollection says there is, but I don't remember the details.
Mayor, Councilmember Edberg, you are correct. There is an opportunity for resubmittal after denial, and it is 1 year after denial. I want to add, if I may, Mayor, there's one, paragraph I did not cover in the memo, which states, through processing the application, there were no other active licenses listed on the application, nor was the police department able to identify them, and I wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. These are tough. And we've done a few of these over the years, and we've been very consistent and very, what's the word? We've been tough. I mean, any mistake on that application, we have denied appeals. The staff has denied the applications. We had a woman who put her birthday down wrong, and although that was a little suspicious why you'd mess up your own birthday, but that was the nature of the error. It was one digit wrong, and we denied that appeal. And then we've always said, as a city, that's sort of the tact we want to take. That's the reputation we want to have. We want to be known as a city that is difficult, not difficult. That's the wrong word. Stringent, strict, following the rules in this area of business. And so reading the memo, it's a denial for me. I'm a little torn because I've got Mr. Carlson here who I trust. I'll just say it. I mean, I trust he's a business guy in town, and I trust his recommendation, his vouching for the applicant. The problem with that, though, is if I say, because I trust him and I know him and to be a good business guy in town, and I trust that he speaks for the relationship he has with the applicant. So then we're saying yes to that. When we know somebody in town, we say yes. When you don't, we say no, and we're not being consistent anymore. And it would be unfair to the others that we have denied on very, very similar small infractions or misstatements on applications. So it's just this was harder. It's harder than others, but I still think I'm going to support the resolution on the appeal.
Any other thoughts or comments on this? If not, we have a resolution before us. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the resolution upholding the denial?
Yeah, I'll move the approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion on this? Councilmember Hughes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I guess I'm struggling, and so I appreciate the fact that you spoke up. I have not voted on any of these. I understand why we want to be slow, why we want to be strict. And I get that this is sort of that this license is different than other licenses. It's still a license, and so I'm struggling with, we don't treat other licenses like this the same. Or I guess I'm saying, do we? If someone were coming in for a, alcohol, to sell liquor, is it this strict, this tight? Again, I recognize that they are not apples and apples. And that, and and I guess that maybe that's part of it, is sort of the recognition of them being different, and of some of the underlying problems. You know, we talked, we have talked about our own legislative agenda and wanting our police officers to be able to look further into some certain situations in order to make sure that, you know, our citizens are actually in safe hands. And I guess my temptation here is to try to figure out some way to offer, hey, if you want a thorough background check that we can't provide, you could go forward. But anyway, I guess I'd love your thoughts on, again, license to license is not exactly the same, but are we fairly strict on the other ones as well?
Mayor, Councilmember Hughes, yes, we are fairly strict on all of the licenses that we issued. You stated it correctly that this is not they're not all treated equal because they're all different, right? But if we do find an error, we do make a recommendation for denial, regardless of whatever application comes before you.
Councilmember Edberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Crawford, for the infractions that we recommend denial, so I'm continuing down the lane that Councilmember Hughes started. Are they also in abeyance for 1 year before they can reapply for a liquor license, or is there variability within the city's practice in terms of how long you are denied or prevented from reapplying?
Mayor, Councilmember Edberg, that's a great question. I don't have that answer off the top of my head.
So if I might, Councilmember Walsh is correct. The very first times that I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, somewhere in there, when we began licensing and active conversation at this dais, clearly supported strict interpretation. Now, we did have there wasn't a complete unanimity of view, but there was a prevailing yes, that's the way that this city wants to approach license issues, is with denial and waiting a year. I'm going to draw an analogy to another conversation that we had about PUDs and the proper standard for how many votes does it take to approve a PUD, and should that be 3 or our historic practice was 4. We changed it to bring it into compliance with other things, and we've kind of put a marker down for a future conversation about what is the right standard that we think meets our needs. And so there's a part of me that says, I like consistency. I like the idea that people are treated consistently, fairly, and relatively equally, recognizing that we have there's a lot of situations that are different. There's part of me that says, I'm not quite so sure that a year, given some of the changes that we've seen, that a year is necessarily the right length, but it is the length that we have in our ordinance right now. And so I'm wondering, Councilmember Hughes, if there might be a place for that kind of thinking as it pertains to this particular ordinance and our enforcement. Now, we may want to do more research first to find out how diverse are we in our treatment of all licenses and denials and terms, and ask whether that's a place for greater levels of consistency or not. I think it would probably take more than 1 or 2 voices to compel that, but if there are other council members that would be interested in considering whether we have the right regulatory approach, I think that could be a future conversation. Just that's how your questions land in my brain.
Well, go ahead.
Well, a couple comments on that. First off, I agree, and I think we should, and quite frankly, with conversations with the city manager offline about what the current state of our ordinance is with regard to this, I think there is room for us maybe looking at it and seeing how we should how we could amend it, and that's, I think, fair public policy discussions that we can and should have. What's before us tonight, and what I care a great deal about, is being fair and being consistent. So if the ordinance as it's currently written, if that's been the past practice, which this is the first denial and appeal that's ever come during my 2 years as being mayor, I'll take those legacy members of the council at their word. If I'm hearing Councilmember Walsh correct, that we've denied an applicant for something as seemingly innocuous as having the birthday off, then certainly this would be on a spectrum of good, bad, worst. This would be more severe than what would seem to be a typo, right? Whether or not you have an active license is potentially dispositive of how you're evaluating the application. So I think those are the two things. This sort of like other issues that have come in what has become our recent activity of trying to amend and update and change our code that maybe has been forgotten about for some time. This is yet another one to add to the list, and I would welcome that discussion going forward. For tonight, I think if we're applying past practice and being consistent, then upholding the denial is the likely outcome. There was also the question about what we've done with what's the review period, what's the second bite at the apple if there is a denial with regard to liquor licenses, maybe tobacco licenses. That's a good question. I would like an answer to that. But the 1 year may or may not be too extreme. I think that's fair game, particularly if it is truly an error. But as I read the ordinance, first of all, and I'll ask our city attorney who's pinch hitting for Troy tonight, does the word shall appear in our ordinance?
Mayor, members of the council, yes, it does. And I think the specific provision that Lindy referenced earlier is at least one example of that. So the ordinance does say that you shall deny the application if you receive false information. The memo from the city manager basically discusses how you got that information. And so that is one place that it is, referenced in the code. And so I can answer any other questions about the code if you'd like, but.
No, I appreciate that. That's helpful. And I bring it up because as an attorney, that's where my mind immediately goes. It says shall. So really, it's not even a discretionary thing. And I know that that's quite frankly heartless and cold as it pertains to this, but we need to follow the law. We need to follow the ordinance. We need to be consistent with what we've done in the past. If it said may, we could sit here and have a discussion about whether or not it's within our discretion and whether or not it's good or bad, but it says shall. And that goes part and parcel with what we discussed. Maybe it shouldn't say shall. That's a good public policy debate that I think we ought to have another night. But for tonight, it does say shall. Again, I know that's very draconian and cold, but that's what it says. So I'll just leave it with, I think we should, and I would welcome a further discussion, and I think we can schedule it for a work session. That would be great. But for tonight, I do have a motion and a second for the resolution that is currently before us. Is there further discussion on this? Councilmember Edberg.
Only to ask, as we do other research, so we've identified how do we treat other licenses and is there a denial? How long is that denial? I'd be interested in if there is data on that. And what has been our experience with individuals who have been denied, and do we get many reapplications after a stated period? I don't need an answer tonight, but as we prepare as you review our files, that would be a data point that would be of interest to me.
Councilmember West.
Thank you. Another data point that I'd just be interested in is what other cities do, especially cities our size, but like any cities.
Mayor, council members, our massage ordinance was last reviewed and updated in 2017 under our current city attorney, and I believe it is, don't quote me, I'll do the research, but I believe it is not far off at all from other cities.
All right. If there's no further discussion, All those in favor of approving the resolution, upholding the denial, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the resolution carries. All right, item 7, unfinished business, we have nothing scheduled. Item 8, new business, nothing scheduled. Item 9, discussion, nothing scheduled. Item 10, communications from the city manager. Ms. Crawford.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to note Terry Vadnais, who served the White Bear Lake Fire Department for 51 years, passed away on February 18th. And he served in the roles of captain, lieutenant, EMT, training officer, and driver before fully retiring in 2020 from White Bear Fire. Although I didn't work with him, I'm told Terry was known as someone who always stepped up to help his partners. He was meticulous when it came to caring for the fire trucks and made sure that they were always clean and ready to respond. But what Terry is most remembered for is his kind and welcoming demeanor. So I know that all at the fire department will miss him as well as this community. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Next slide. Some happy news. Bill Foussard was awarded the Tourism Industry Leader Award from Explore Minnesota yesterday. So Community Development Director Lindahl and Housing and Economic Development Coordinator Shimmick and Lisa Beecroft and I went down there to watch him receive that award. He had no idea. So it was very special. And the mayor provided some comment, and it was very special. So we did put that out on social media, and I'm sure that'll be in other areas too. I have another slide, I think. Upcoming events, we have our downtown mobility and parking study community open house scheduled for March 7th in this room from 6 to 8 p.m. We want everyone to attend. We have put it on social media. It's on our website. It will be in the newspaper. We hung posters today. We handed out posters and flyers to businesses, and we direct mailed letters to everyone in the area. I think I've covered what we've all done. So, and there will be, for those who cannot attend, there will be an online option if people still want to provide feedback. And then lastly, Mayor, thank you for having a moment of silence for our partners in Burnsville. Today, representatives from police and our fire departments attended the joint memorial service for their fallen colleagues in Burnsville. And obviously, as you said, our hearts are with their families and the entire community of Burnsville. We had a close call here, and I'm thankful that we didn't have to go through what Burnsville is going through. I can't imagine the impact and the heaviness of that right now. We talk about it a lot. Obviously, it takes a very special person to respond to an emergency, and they're oftentimes going into situations that the rest of us, certainly me, are running away from. So they understand the risks involved and what it takes, but those risks are outweighed by their desire to protect and serve. So as society, we all benefit, obviously, from their sacrifices. So thank you to all of our White Bear Lake first responders. We certainly do not take your commitment lightly at all. Fire Chief Peterson actually was down responding in Burnsville on the day of the incident. They called him to help, and a couple days after that. So he was was down there seeing it firsthand. And so there are, unfortunately or fortunately, some takeaways that he will share with the police chief and myself and the assistant city manager. And speaking with other colleagues, just to put it into perspective, the gravity of this, in addition to other police departments and fire departments responding to help Burnsville, there were numerous public works employees and departments also helping. There were at least 8 different communication specialists on team from other cities helping, because this is communications. And it went as far as other admin assistants helping staff front desk at Burnsville. So we hope this never happens, but it's nice to see that our community of city people come together when it does. So that's what I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Very well said. Any questions for Ms. Crawford? All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.